Hi, I'm Colin Seale, the founder and CEO of thinkLaw, where we help educators teach critical thinking to all students. And I'd like to welcome you to this week's edition of #Thinking Tuesday. This week's topic is 3 reasons why we fail to teach critical thinking to all students. Now, when we talk about what the definition of critical thinking is, I want to bring you back to last week's #Thinking Tuesday edition, where we clarified that critical thinking is not just about skills. It's about making sure that we have the habits and the mindsets where we're regularly going to be applying these skills throughout life, career, and academics. So here are the 3 reasons why we're not seeing this in the classroom. But first, let's talk about why we're even having this conversation. If we are serious that it's our job to ensure that our students are prepared for their future, and we understand and accept that the future is going to require critical thinking as the essential skill, then we need to absolutely stop treating it like a luxury good. There's no reason we should only be doing critical thinking in gifted and talented courses. There's no reason that honors classes are the types of classes where kids are getting asked these deeper questions, where you have these other kids that are deemed low or regular and they're not getting that same level of push. So here are the top 3 reasons why this disparity that we call the critical thinking gap exists. First, there's a belief gap. And let's talk about this belief gap. This belief gap is an issue of can't, don't, and won't. Those are really harmful words when you think about saying that certain kids can't think critically. They don't think critically. And if we try to get them to think critically, guess what? They won't think critically. Here's the reality. So many of our kids, particularly our kids that are coming up in the struggle, they think critically every single day. They think critically on their way to school. The decision to sit in front of your chair in that desk every morning, that took critical thinking to get them there. So it's our job to figure out how to unleash this inherent critical thinking potential. In my life, when I saw the way that my mother was able to make $1 out of 15 cents, when I saw the way that my mother was able to get resources, to get things on the table, even when financial times were tough, I had this exemplar critical thinking going on right in my household. And so do so many of our students. So make sure we don't let our belief gap in their capabilities stop us from understanding that they can definitely get there. But even when we do have the belief that all students can think critically, there tends to be a gap on the tools and time that our teachers have. Any instructor knows that they have a tight schedule in terms of the standards they need to cover, the content they need to go over. And very often when you have students that might be deemed low, it's really hard to figure out how do you balance being able to cover the material that it's going to take to catch them up with this critical thinking that we know they need to know, but it's hard to figure out how to square that. So let me clear one thing up. Just because a student might not be on level in math or on level in reading or in any other subject doesn't mean they can't think critically. In fact, by focusing on critical thinking, you might actually be able to tap into that motivation and that engagement that's going to actually make it so much more likely that your students would care to get that content that it's going to take to get them caught up. So really make sure that we understand that balance there. This third piece, I'm really talking to my school leaders and my principals here. And here's the reality. Too often, principals and school leaders do not get to be the true instructional leaders of their building. I was talking to a principal the other day that was explaining that in a 3-month period, they had to be a part of 3 different funerals for students that they had to bury in their school. Kind of hard to focus on something like the critical thinking gap when you have so many other things going on in your school building. And when you really drill that down and thinking about what it takes to develop teachers to get to that point and support them, you realize that one of the things that's missing is an overall strategy around closing the critical thinking gap and prioritizing that. Because when we take issues like chronic disciplinary issues, chronic absenteeism, trying to close the school, the prison, the pipeline, guess what? If we were to focus on critical thinking, and again, not just the definition of skills, but also the mindsets and the habits that it takes to translate those skills across disciplines, well, now we're tapping into decision making. Now we're tapping into conflict resolution. Now we're building empathy and building core pieces of social emotional learning. So we need to make sure that critical thinking is a priority at the school leadership level. So if we can close that belief gap, if we can make sure that teachers are getting the training they need to overcome the time and the tools that they sometimes don't have the resources for, and if we can ensure that principals have a school-wide strategy to make critical thinking a priority in the midst of all the other things that they're dealing with as the powerful leaders that they are, then we can get closer to a world where critical thinking is no longer a luxury good. Thank you for tuning in for hashtag Thinking Tuesday. Follow us at thinkLaw US and visit our website at www.thinklaw.us for more information. Take care.